Halloween
forever.
All right, so imagine this, right? Picture this. You got three moles. They're tunneling underneath a house. And they're in the first mole in the front says, "Wow, I smell something tasty, something kind of sweet."
Uh-huh.
And it says almost smells like honey. And then looks back to the mole behind him, says, "Hey, do you smell that?" And he says, "Yeah, it smells pretty yummy. You know what? To me, it smells like syrup almost. It's making my mouth water." And then he said, "Hey, do you smell that back there?" To the third mole, and the third mole says, "To me, it smells like molasses."
Oh, Jesus.
Welcome, boys and girls, to a fucking Minisode all the way forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
You know, like a sweet, you got your honey, you got your syrup, you got your molasses, but they're moles and molasses, because he's behind him. He smelled his little mole ass. That was all right. That was kind of cute. Guys, why am I telling mole jokes? Because I don't know what these monsters is in this movie. I think they might be kind of moles. I don't know. That's why I had a mole joke. Anyway, guys, we are here to discuss a brand new release that came out on the Shudder here recently, starring perennial show favorite, Mr. Nicolas Cage. We're going to be talking about Arcadian from 2004. We were going to talk about what did I say? 2004. Oh, because I just put on a movie from 2004. 2024, this here year that we're in right now. We were talking about some 2000s sci-fi horror, which I just put on here in the background, watching Vampire Bats, starring the great Lucy Lawless. I'm hoping she tries to sell me some jewelry at some point. I assume she will. But we are going to talk instead about we're going to wait and talk about Longlegs next week. We're going to talk about Arcadian, not to be confused with The Arcadian, which is another movie that is like a sci-fi thriller type of movie from, I don't know, a couple decades ago. We were going to talk about Longlegs. Here's what happened. There was nowhere within an hour of where I was at that was playing this fucking movie. Your boy was on vacation upstate New York near Oswego, if anybody knows where that is, middle of damn nowhere.
Yeah.
And we go to a movie theater up there, right? Pretty often. Rainy day, instead of going to the beach, we take the kids to go see a movie, right? It's this cool movie theater up there. They got all the new releases. Didn't have it. The closest one was like 50 miles away that was going to actually be playing Longlegs. So I was like, you know what? Let's pump the brakes on this so I don't have to drive an hour each way to see this movie. So spoiler-free episode for Longlegs. Your boy has not seen it. Steve, did you get a chance to watch it this week?
I did go see it. I went and saw it on a Friday afternoon. Yeah. Because I can do that kind of shit. Yeah. And I like it. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm. To a point.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of mixed things, and I'm trying to actively not look at it, but occasionally you see like, this is the greatest movie ever. It's the internet, so it's all fucking stupid. Right. This is the greatest thing of all time, or this is the biggest piece of shit movie I've ever seen, which usually means it's fine. But we shall see.
I think it's far more than fine. Like, it sticks out uniquely.
Yeah.
And like, I'll tell you, one of the things is like the framing in Longlegs and the cinematography is so fucking good. Like, I just ate it up. Yeah. I was just like, yum, 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 yum.
Yeah.
Because
just tasty treats.
It's almost the exact opposite of this film that we watched for tonight. Arcadian is kind of a handheld, feels like a guerrilla shoot as you go film almost. Whereas like every shot in Longlegs is meticulously planned, and a lot of them are dripping with subtext, and a lot of them are like begging you to search the frame for meaning.
Oh, fun. I like that kind of stuff.
It's fantastically put together that way. It's just like one of the story elements I did not like.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. All right. I'm interested.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
But also Nicolas Cage is fantastic in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's Nicolas Cage, for Christ's sakes. Come on, guys.
Right, yeah.
Give it the program. He's top 5 greatest living actors. I don't give a shit what you say. We are watching a production which spoiler alert for Arcadian. It doesn't have as much Nicolas Cage as you might want. He's in a fucking coma or something for half of the movie. But you know what? He shows up. He does good stuff. He does some good work, as always. But this is directed by one Benjamin Brewer, who is pretty new to the directing world, to the feature-length directing world. He did this one. He did Reptile in 2023, and then probably best known for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which is a pretty fucking wild movie that obviously got a ton of attention when it came out a couple years ago. But he was the visual effects for that one. Is this his first director? No, he's got more director credits than this. But mostly for shorts, music videos. Is this his first?
This might be his first feature.
Okay,
unless he has a credit from 2011 called Beneath Contempt.
Yeah, I see that. That sounds familiar.
I haven't seen it. I'm wondering if this is also a documentary feature.
He's got one called The Trust, which is also starring Nicolas Cage. A pair of cops investigating a drug invasion stumble upon a mysterious bank vault from 2016. That's a feature length one he's got a directorial credit on. It's got Nick Cage, Elijah Woods.
I've
not seen it.
I've actually seen this. I didn't realize this was also him as well. Okay, yeah, because he shares a credit with Alex Brewer, who I'm assuming is his brother. This movie, The Trust, is pretty fucking good as far as like heist films go. I
know you're a big heist guy.
Yeah, it's good. I like it a lot. It is it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
And it's unpleasant, and just like the way it ends is like, oh my gosh. And Elijah Wood is a great piece of shit in that film.
Elijah Wood's great in fucking everything. I don't think he's never not been great. So this movie, I'll spoil it right off the bat. I thought it was kind of a fun movie. I think there was a little bit of boilerplate type of stuff there for a while. I will say that the two, we'll go through the cast here in a second, but the two main cast, in addition to Nicolas Cage certainly the top billed person on here. But like I said, certainly not featured nearly as much as Jaden Martell, who many of you know, he played young Bill in the It remakes, It Chapter 2, which he was great in that. And then this Maxwell Jenkins cat plays his brother Thomas, which I feel like I've seen his face in things, but don't really know anything about him. He also has the just like generic TikTok boy face. So like it could be, you know what I mean? Could have been from a lot of different things that I saw him, but apparently played Will Robinson in a TV series, Lost in Space. Apparently did a TV series from 2018 to 2021. Who fucking knew? I didn't even know that existed, but he played Will Robinson in that.
Who cares? He plays young Reacher. That's what I recognize him from.
Yes, he plays young Reacher. That was the other thing I was just about to mention, which I got to assume young Reacher is still 6 foot 210. So he's too small. I don't care. Young Reacher came out. He's 10 years old. He was bench pressing 300 pounds. That's all I'm saying. We're of course talking about the Reacher TV series, not the fucking dumbass Tom Cruise shit.
Not the Tom Cruise one. No, he definitely is still just like an ass kicker as a kid, which is hilarious. Yeah. And so like it's a lot of flashbacks of him like having to like apologize to a family for kicking the shit out of their kid. It's fucking great.
So those two are the leads, and they play brothers, like I had mentioned, Joseph and Thomas. And I wouldn't say either of them are bad necessarily, but I would say that they're not so much oil and water so much as two types of diarrhea that don't mix together at all. Like their performances when they're both on screen are trash. I don't know if it's just me. I assume it was a decision that they made the way they interact with each other. But it was like when either one of them were on the screen without each other, I thought they were fine.
Right.
I don't know if you share the sentiment, but to say they had less than zero chemistry, I feel like is an understatement. Like they talked to each other like they'd never fucking met, let alone brothers that grew up in literally knowing 20 people. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Their chemistry as brothers isn't great, but I think it's more meant to sell the idea of them not being good brothers at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And then they become better brothers by the end of the film. That's the arc we get.
I guess.
But yeah. And just overall, the character of Thomas is completely unlikable anyway. Like
he's a horrible asshole who literally, sells his brother and father up the creek for some girl he likes.
A little bit of pussy.
Kind of a dickweed, but still, yeah, I don't know. We'll get into it. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of that relationship because we'll talk plenty about it. Their dad, of course, is played by the great Nick Cage. His name, because in my notes I just refer to him as Nicolas Cage or Cage Daddy or Daddy Cage or whatever.
Big Daddy Cage.
Yeah, he plays Paul. And then really the only other significant character you get is Charlotte, who's played by Sadie Soverall. And she has popped up in a lot of stuff. She's in Saltburn. I think a lot of people would know her. Genre fans from recent years would know her. She's also another kind of young up and coming, kind of early 20s actress. Little Bone Lodge. I don't know what that is. I think I maybe saw one other thing that she was in. She's only got, maybe 6 or 7 credits. And then you do get her parents, which, play relatively small roles as well. And that's it, right? Small cast for the most part. You get a couple wacky, crazy farmhands, which one of them is credited on IMDb as militant farmer. That was kind of that's a pretty specific credit there. In any case, this is a post-apocalyptic flick here, just to give you a little bit of a teaser before we get into it. But we got a couple other things we got to do at the top of the show here, so that's why there's not a whole lot of people in there. Is basically what I'm saying. Anyway, let's do a couple of fucking things at the top of the show before we get into talking about the plot of this here movie. Steve, you got a little beer you've been sipping on over there? What you got?
I got 2 drinks tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was out grocery shopping, and I know the past couple episodes you've been drinking this Poppy fucking gut health soda, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the grocery store and I saw that it was on sale. They had single cans.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've mentioned this on an older episode, but everybody knows I'm a bevy guy. But on top of the bevy mountain is root beer. Mm-hmm. So I would be a poor steward of root beer if I didn't go out and get the Poppy root beer.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, can I tell you, it fucking blows.
I didn't think it was that bad.
It is terrible.
Root beer is and here's what else, and maybe my expectations were lower than yours, because root beer notoriously very, very high sugar drink, right? Even compared to other like colas and stuff, root beer is usually extremely high in sugar. I love a root beer too. You all know that. And when I saw there's a root beer that has 4 or 5 grams of sugar in it, I was like, oh, this might be a hot shit. And then I drank it. I was like, hey, it kind of tastes like root beer,
Yeah. My problem
is
with
it top 5 root beer of all time? Certainly not.
No,
certainly not.
No, this shit is below mug, and I don't like a mug. Fuck a mug.
Here's what we're starting to learn. You're a fucking snob. You're a fucking root beer snob is what you are.
I'm not a root beer snob. I mean, maybe I am, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I love Barks. It's just mug. I don't like it all.
Yeah.
But the trash with the Poppy is that I took a sip and I go, ooh, that tastes bad. Why does it taste bad? And I look on the ingredients. It has apple juice and apple cider vinegar in it.
Well, they all have apple cider vinegar in them. That's the whole thing with Poppy.
Well, I don't know that. I never had one of these. but now I had it.
That's why they're getting sued.
Good.
That's why they're getting sued or whatever for a class action. Because here's what they do, right? There's all these better for you sodies that's popping up out there, and they say all types of random ass dumb shit. But this one, you know how people eat like or take shots of apple cider vinegar for their gut health, right? Well, the whole idea is that is if it's raw apple cider vinegar, then it has live culture in it, it has acetobacter in it, and it helps to balance out your gut biome, make you shit, do whatever you need to do, right? So you're actually adding microorganisms to your gut. Well, if you're drinking pasteurized fucking soda pop, any live cultures in there are killed off. So that's why they can't say probiotic. They say prebiotic. And apparently anything that you could, prebiotic isn't a thing, right? That's just a marketing term. So if anything, I feel like we've talked about, I'm getting deja vu. Maybe we did talk about this before.
We've definitely done this before.
Yeah. Okay.
We've done this every time that you've drank Poppy on the show.
Really? Okay. My brain doesn't work great. But here's the point. That's why they're getting sued, because they said that they're making way too bold of claims on the can saying it's good for your gut and all that. And it's like, it's not. Oh, yeah. It's good for your gut in the sense that it's not bad for your gut. That's pretty much it. Like, it's just a drink. It's just a low sugar pop.
It occurs 3 times on the can. It says for a healthy gut, be gut happy, be gut healthy. And then like it says pop cultured on the back. And like you can't say cultured because this isn't cultured.
I think that's one of the big reasons why they're getting sued is the whole culture thing.
Yeah.
It's
misleading.
misleading.
And then the ingredients are insane. Like the sweetener, like you're saying, like the sweeteners are less, but it's because it's coming from like 3 different sources, if not 4, because it has organic cane sugar, apple juice, and then stevia, and then it also has like agave fucking insulin. What does that say? Inulin?
It's just insulin. Yeah, it's insulin.
Yeah. But like, so yeah, this stuff is the root beer in particular is fucking terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I gave it a try. I wasn't in love with it. I think I got a variety pack at the Costco. It was just fine. But you know what? Yeah, the root beer, the fact that it had a root beer that was that low in sugar made me kind of horned up. But I won't say it's a good root beer among root beers. Let's put it that way. Well, what else do you got?
Just real simple. I have a Penn Brewery Penn Gold. Just a
little
Hellas.
How's it tasting?
Yeah, it's fine. It strangely has more bite than the fucking root beer, and that's also upsetting.
It was a little bit of one note. I do recall that about the root beer. But can redesign, it looks like.
Yeah, that's why I brought it on. I was wondering, like, did that look new to you? If not, because it looked new to me. Yeah, I was like, hey, did they go through a whole can redesign? And I guess they did, because I hadn't seen those before. But yeah, it does look like it. I mean, I know the brewery's under new ownership, and qualities kind of went up and down over the years. But I was always a fan of Penn Gold. Hopefully, it's on the up and up. We shall see. I'll have to give it a try. It's good.
Yeah. Guess what I'm drinking, Steve? I'll give you
Pilsner Urquell.
2 guesses, and one of them don't count. Yep. Your boy's drinking a little Pilsner Urquell over here. I was on vacation, as I mentioned, up there in beautiful upstate New York, sitting on the lovely shore of Lake Ontario, drinking a lot of beers this week. They have a beer up there called Switchback Ale. I think it's actually from Vermont, but we don't get it down here, but we do get it up there. And it's it doesn't call it the South. Honestly, if I did describe it, I would say it's like a California Common. It's like a even more aggressively bitter
Anchor,
like Anchor Steam, like a more aggressively bitter Anchor Steam. It's bottle conditioned. It's just a real old school beer. You're like, no one else makes a beer like this. I always drink that when I'm up there, and then I drank about 150 dang old Miller Lights too. So your boy hasn't had a Pilsner in nigh on a whole week. So needs a little bit in my system.
I mean, look what you did, Brian. You leave for vacation. You don't have Pilsners. You can't see Longlegs. And then, some other stuff happened too, I guess.
I'm never going on vacation again. Last vacation I'm ever going to take. We got one other couple 2-3 things we got to talk about here real quick. First of all, as always, if you want to help us by, I don't know, suggesting a Minisode topic or perhaps a topic for our monthly showdown episodes that happens every damn Monday. We do put that spicy, sweet, tasty content out on the internet every Monday, but the first Monday of the month is our showdown episode. Perhaps you might want to suggest a topic for our showdown episode. Perhaps you want to vote on a topic for our showdown episode. Hint, hint. We're going to talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. You probably should go over and follow us on the social medias at Halloween is Forever on Instagram and on Twitter and Facebook and all the different various places. If you were smart enough to have already done that by now, then perhaps you would have gotten an opportunity to help us pick our showdown topic coming up for the lovely month of August, which we had voted on last week. Steve, do you happen to have it up? Would you be so kind as to remind the boys and ghouls at home what the 3 topics we had to pick from were?
Oh, I don't remember all 3 of them were. I would just remember what one.
Okay, let's think if we can remember them. I believe we had good scenes in bad movies.
Yes,
and then it was the Ah Little Monsters.
Yep, Ah Little Monsters.
And then it was beach horror, right?
Yep, Blood Beach.
Oh, I did get. Okay, what one?
Blood Beach won.
Blood Beach won for August. How fitting. How fitting. We're going to be talking about horror genre films that happen on or around or during a beach excursion of some sort. So that'll be quite fun. Steve, we did talk about how, like, for example, Jaws is off the table, right? Because we've already done Jaws before in the past.
Yeah.
What other movies are there? Any potential? We've also done like Piranha 3D. You know, that has come up, that we've done that one already. So that one's off the table. Is there any other things that we should call out that maybe we haven't done before, but are Meg rails, perhaps?
I can't think of anything that's specifically a Meg rail.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're doing this based on audience voting, last episode we discussed that Humanoids from the Deep may be off, but
yeah,
I don't know. I still kind of want to take it off because I feel like the audience is just going to gravitate towards it.
I know, it's so good. It's one of my favorite movies. I think if I recall, what we discussed was maybe not to necessarily put a Meg rail up, but just maybe a gentleman's agreement that we will not do Humanoids from the Deep, because we both really already know that we like that movie a lot. I would be comfortable with that. I don't think there's anything else that I can think of. I think Dan said Orca, which
Orca's fine.
I'm looking at my VHS copy of Orca right now over on my shelf. I fucking love that movie. I'm not going to pick it, but that movie is batshit.
Can I say 2 movies that might be off?
Okay.
And you can refute if you want.
Okay.
Virus and Deep Rising.
Okay. Deep Rising, I would not have picked either anyway. I don't really care.
That's fine. I just want to say I'm just giving them as examples because neither of them have a beach.
Okay.
So like Deep Rising, Virus, Leviathan.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so just because it's ocean doesn't mean it's beach.
Right. It's not a blood beach. We're thinking like a blood beach party.
Beach party, hanging out, building sandcastles. Of course, the ocean is innately involved with the beach. Guys, if there's one thing I know about a beach, is that the ocean ain't far behind. Never.
Right.
As far as beach is concerned. Unless, of course, it is a lake, right? And then in that case, it is definitely, the ocean is not there. So, which is literally where I spent all week long. It doesn't have to have the ocean, but there's going to be a body of water involved if there's going to be a beach. So there's got to be a beach. So I would agree with that. Although Virus is a fucking fun movie. Bonkers. What just occurred to me, I was looking through because I haven't saw Virus in a while, is that one segment in VHS 94, or maybe was that the one that was had like the whole biometric thing? That is heavily Virus, inspired by Virus. I completely forgot about that until I was looking at some of that movie fucking rolls. R.I.P. Donald Sutherland as well. All right. Well, I have to do a little thinking before next week where we talk about what our picks are going to be for Blood Beach. One more thing before we get into this son of a bitchin' movie. Steve and I are going to be recording pretty dang soon for our July episode of our Patreon exclusive podcast. If y'all haven't been following us on the Patreon, or maybe you're new to the show, go over and check it out. It's patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. You get a whole bunch of fun stuff over there. Steve, why don't you tell them real quick what we get, and then we'll tell them about this whole podcast we do.
You get movie reviews. You get the Discord. You get live recordings. We got people in the Discord right now. We're talking to Dan and James. They showed up for this one. They got shit going on. They're telling us about Orca and root beers. You could be doing that too.
Yeah.
So you get all that. You get the back catalog of Family is Forever, the Fast and the Furious podcast that we did. And you get the current one, Youth Group is Forever.
Youth Group is Forever, guys. It's a lot of fun. Steve made me watch all those dog shit Fast and the Furious movies, which I will say they did. I think it was on USA or something like that. Did a Fast and the Furious marathon for 4th of July.
Sure,
a couple weeks ago. It was the most American thing I've ever seen. Steve made me watch all those fucking movies. So as a punishment to him, as revenge, I am subjecting him once per month to a really shitty, like right-wing Christian propaganda horror movie, right? Horror / sci-fi movies. We watched a movie that has Snoop Dogg in it that basically talks about why you're going to hell. Then we watched a movie called, I actually hesitate to call it a movie, called The Lock-In, where a bunch of fucking incels and extraordinarily closeted gay kids tried to make a movie about if you look at porn, you go to hell. And then next month, next episode, which is of course this month, July, we're going to talk about what else is going to send you to hell. Spoiler alert, whole bunch of shit. Everything. Everything's going to send you to hell. So if you want to check out that backlog of Families Forever, or you want to start tuning in as we go down this fucking rickety old path towards the fiery pits of hell, and hopefully we save Steve's soul. I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not.
No.
During Youth Group is Forever, head on over to Patreon. .com/Halloween is Forever. I think you give us $5 a month and you get all that fun stuff. So consider it, boys and ghouls. Consider it. And you can always go over and write a little review on the social medias. We're coming up. Boy, howdy, we're almost in August, and my birthday comes around in August. That's the beginning of spooky season as far as I'm concerned. So as we get a little closer to spooky season, we're going to get a whole bunch of fucking new people who come on and start listening to us. We always appreciate you. Check us out on the social media. You can click that link and check on the Patreon over there. You can review us, do all that good stuff. And as always, I always forget to say it. I never say it anymore, but it's still offers on the table. If you want to write us a review on let's say it's Apple Podcasts, or let's say it's a Spotify, you write us a little review, slip into the old DM, say, hey, I wrote your review. I said, all right, I believe you. And then you send me your address, and I'll send you some motherfucking Halloween's Forever stickers in the mail. The old-fashioned mail, not the email. I'll send you old-fashioned mail with a stamp on it. All right. Let's get in. Anything else, Stephen, forget about before we get into this son of a bitchin' movie?
Nah.
Yeah, that's it. We got all that stuff out of the way. All right. Again, let's talk. We're talking about the Arcadian. We kind of set it up. We talked about some of the big players here. We talked about the cast. We talked about the fact that Nicolas Cage is not in it quite as much as we would prefer him to. But you get the idea, although it's not explicitly kind of laid out, but you definitely get the idea that Nicolas Cage is not these boys' biological father. We are in a post-apocalyptic, really like outskirts of a very large cityscape. It almost looks like New York City or something like that, but we're way out on the outskirts, and you start by old Nicky Cage. He's just running down a fucking alley with a backpack on, and there's all these sirens going off, all those types of mad shit. And then he kind of enters into this big giant, it's actually a pretty wild kind of set. I don't know where it is. Obviously, it's not a set, but shooting location. it almost looks like it's like a big dam or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
So this was filmed in Ireland, I believe. And so
yeah, I know at least like all the rural stuff later was. I didn't know if this one was or not, but
yeah, I assumed this was like some sort of just like boggy, marshy area that you find all across the UK. So, they just went out to one of those areas and filmed it, and then,
they asked the local bog witch, hey, can we shoot on your land? She said,
exactly.
And they said, all right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and they assumed that's okay. She took a frog and smeared its slime across a contract, and that means it's okay for them to film there. That's the release.
She signed it, bog hag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the opening is like cool, and it sets the tone because it's like a handheld chase following Nick Cage, through all these like busted ass alleys, and then you get like little glimpses of what's happening, but like you can't tell what's being said over the announcements. You're just seeing like rockets fly off, but you're not seeing what they're shooting at. So yeah, it's a cool setup in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he finds some babies.
Yeah. And then he just stumbles upon a couple of babies, and he just goes at these babies in straight Nick Cage fashion. He's not like, shh, shh. He's like, hey, relax. It'll be okay. Hey, babies, it's going to be fine. Like he just talks to them like adults. It's great.
Yeah. Babies, be chill.
I just wrote, where did old guy get them babies? And then apparently real finders keepers situation, because he just gets these babies and they're his babies now. Fast forward 15 years. They are his sons. So they're big, strong boys now. And they're just out doing Kevin Bacon shit in the woods. They're just like the one Thomas, who they are babies at the same time, and they look to be roughly the same age babies. So you're like, are these twins? I don't think they're twins. They don't look anything alike, but that you would expect them to be pretty damn close to the same age. But one of them seems way older than the other one. I got the feeling, Steve, tell me if you agree with this sentiment. I got the feeling that these are two babies that just happened to be there. They weren't necessarily brothers. I don't think the two boys are biologically related necessarily. This was just a dang old baby stash, and Nick Cage just stumbled upon it. Finders keepers, took the babies.
Yep. I think it's, like he came across like somebody was trying to get these babies out of town. And then they were unsuccessful, and they just, dropped their baby loot. He had to pull them out.
Yeah, he gathered them up. So 15 years later, like I said, one of them, the one that seems to be a little bit older, maybe not, he's a taller one too, it's just Thomas. He's the one who's kind of got that TikTok buttery boy look to him, and he's just this handsome, strapping young man. He's doing Kevin Bacon stuff, just running, jumping, flash dancing in the fucking woods. He's getting home late, and Daddy Cage is mad, and it's like dusk. And they're like, where's your brother? I don't know. And he comes running up, and Nick Cage is like, hey, you're late, you asshole. And he's kind of in trouble. And you're like, well, why does he care about being late? Why do you have to be in by dark? Why are they so worried about the dark? They show him locking up it's a whole mess. They got to lock up the house, secure the house. This is apparently a ritual that they have to undergo every single night because there's some sort of danger. We don't know what it is. They do this weird little, this is like, there's so many things in this movie that you can just tell where Nick Cage inserted. And this is part of the magic of having Nick Cage in your movies, is he's just going to add little dumb shit in there. You know what I mean? Just spice, just the spice of life that comes along with having Nick Cage involved in your production. Like there's this one little line where it really, really feels like this wasn't something Nick Cage added. I have no way of verifying that, but the two boys, like Steve, you'd mentioned earlier, they're not getting along at this particular time in their adolescence. Let's say they're about 15, 16 years old. They're not getting along too well. They're fighting a lot. And they're sitting across the table, and Nick Cage is, I wouldn't say he's a disciplinarian, but he runs a tight ship, right? Because they live in this weird post-apocalyptic world, and shit's kind of hit the fan. Bad stuff's happening all over the place, so they got to run a tight ship. And they start arguing with each other, kind of wrestling at the dinner table. And Nick Cage is like, what's wrong with you? Sit down. And they do this little thing where he goes, are we not men?
Yeah.
And stabs his knife into the table. And then the other kid got to do it. And then the other kid's got to do it. And I just thought it was funny that they're such big Devo fans. I didn't know why would this family be such big Devo fans. No, but it was a weird. Obviously, that was a stupid joke, but it was a weird quote to throw in there, which I believe is from The Island of Dr. H.G. Wells, The Island of Dr. Moreau, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It didn't occur to me, but yeah, that actually, I believe that is from that, because it's when they're trying to just gain their agency as like they're not animals. Yeah, so I think you're right about that.
I think that's where it's from. I did not Google it, but I remember reading that book in school, and I'm pretty sure that's where that line is from. Maybe it's from something even before then. I don't really know. Maybe it's fucking Marcus Aurelius or some shit. I don't know. But it's a weird thing because you think that's going to come back later. Does not come back later. So that's just one of those little flight of fancy things that I'm like, I bet Nick Cage was like, let's do this. And then everybody was like, hell yeah. And then they just did it. But anyway, so the kids, this is one thing I'll say. I've been praising the movie so far, and I did enjoy the watch, but I will say that the kids didn't feel like they've been in this post-apocalyptic environment their whole life. They didn't display the type of cunning and like atmospherical kind of awareness that you would expect somebody who grew up in this type of environment to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I got it more from Joseph than I did Thomas, because like my notes just say Thomas is here for the pussy, and then
he is,
and then Joseph is Donatello.
Because he does machines. That's all he does is machines.
Yeah. He does machines and science. And so like it made sense to me that like, okay, Joseph may not have like the full on survival skills, but he has like the skills of like, oh, I need to learn how to rebuild engines in this world. And he's curious about the biology of the creatures, and he's curious about like their thought patterns. And he has like a whole bunch of sketches of like the monsters and also just like bugs that he finds. So like he's curious and adapting in that way. Thomas, you would expect to be the other side of that, of being like the real rough and tumble, like he knows how to bring down a tree and turn it into a fire, within the same hour, something like that. But like you never really get that from Thomas. Thomas just likes to run.
He likes to run, and he likes to get his dick wet. That's what Thomas likes to do.
And he's not great at either, because he falls down.
Actually sucks at both. Miserably bad at both. But yeah, so I actually equated them to Joseph is Kevin McAllister and Thomas is Buzz.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. Anyway, so they're in the house. And hey, what's going on? We just got everything locked up. We're eating our dinner, whatever. And then the dog, they have a dog, which they say its name, I don't remember. The dog kind of alerts Rocco. The dog alerts them to something, and then something starts attacking the house, starts banging on the door, starts going wild. Thomas and Daddy Cage try to fortify the door, while Joseph is just kind of sitting there, kind of analyzing everything. And Thomas kind of scolds him, like, what the hell are you doing? You're just sitting there like a dickhead while we're doing. And he's like, no. And he kind of corrects him and said, no, I was paying attention to how many times he did it and how many seconds they attacked for. And the first time they attacked, they were checking for vulnerability in the door. The second time they attacked, they were trying to get in. And then the third time is out of frustration. So they get this idea that he, like you said, is really kind of analyzing the behavior of whatever these creatures are. Up until this point, of course, we have no idea what those creatures are. So, Thomas, we mentioned, he loves the lady, specifically a lady named, what was her name?
Charlotte.
Charlotte. That's right. I already mentioned it once. Charlotte. And she is a member of the family that lives kind of like one farm over. You get the idea. Maybe it's like a mile or so away, maybe 2 miles away. So he has got to run his little skinny ass over there all the time. And he's always trying to sneak off. And we don't really know why at this point. They don't come out and say it, but I really wrote he's always trying to sneak over this other farm. It's definitely for a girl. So you kind of get that idea, right? Joseph is really kind of getting restless. He's kind of got these big ideas about how to fight these things and whatever they are, we don't know at this point. And he's talking about how he feels like they come from pollution. It's very vague. And Daddy Cage is just trying to keep everything kind of positive and, hey, I think things are getting better and blah, blah, blah. And he's smoking stogies. He the stogies in this movie, I would say, are almost the equivalent, not quite, of the grape soda in Willy's Wonderland. Like when he's really got to do some thinking, when he's got to recharge, he lights himself up a stogie.
Hell yeah.
Probably a Nick Cage flight of fancy there, I believe, too. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. Just a little choice that he made for himself. Like Cage is actually like really subdued. And especially this is me coming off of watching Longlegs. Like they could not be two different performances. Like he is so subdued and just like he's nice and pleasant. Like he's never like overly wild or anything. He is like fatherly a lot of the time. And he's just like, hey boys, chill out. We're going to do this. And aside from that, moment of are we not men? Everything else is like, he's pretty just chilled out. But yeah, I like how this film has no idea about where these monsters came from, aside from they come from the ground. Like, because you have them sharing stories between each other, Joseph and Daddy Cage. They're sharing stories about like, some say it was the pollution, but now the pollution's gone. Da da da. And then the next scene after that is Charlotte and Thomas doing like this game up in a tree. And they're like, they're doing like this oral tradition almost, like they're creating this oral tradition of, the origin story of the monsters. And it's like, oh, this is kind of neat. Like we're not getting a full picture, but it is like a picture.
Yeah, it's a world. It's a very great. It's a good world building thing because it's all speculative, but it's speculative from the. We get the speculation of the characters. It's not all we are going. Like you said, the high kind of whole oral tradition aspect of it. We are really participating in their oral tradition because they're speculating and then we're just getting its third hand from their speculation, right? And we never do get that question answered, which I kind of like.
I did say it's like at one point I was like, wait, isn't this just the plot of Gears of War? A bunch of monsters come out from the ground and they start attacking everybody.
Yeah, that's all. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Yeah. Except for they ain't got no guns over here. They just got just like kitchen knives and one shotgun for the whole town, apparently. Well, a couple, because the other guy has one too. But anyway, they have. We get this idea that again, Joseph is a tinkerer. He has rebuilt kind of a side by side. We call a side by side an ATV. Some people call it a 4x4 type of thing, like your little gator type of thing that you see people drive around their farm and stuff like that on, right? And he just got it started. I love this idea of like the kid's been building it forever, but he doesn't know how to drive it at all. Like Nicolas Cage he's had to drive it. There's this scene that I was starting to get a little bit sketched out for a second, not sketched out in the sense of like the story, just the sketched out in the way of like, oh, maybe this movie's going to suck, because there's a weird improvised scene of Nick Cage trying to teach him how to drive. And it's a little rough. He's like, no, do this and go back. And then the kid's like trying to keep up with him, just like improvising the scene. I get it. You're trying to lend some connection here. He's doing fatherly things. I'll kind of plant the seed now because it gets really, really explicit, especially near the end. But the whole idea here is that this is very much a coming of age tale. And a big theme that reoccurs is like this idea of like this kind of separation from your parents and, kind of going out on your own and finding your own way kind of thing. So, this is him very much still being, attached to his dad and having to learn these skills from his dad, in this instance, trying to learn how to drive this side by side. So, Thomas wants the pork. We know this already. And Daddy Cage is like, no, you guys got to do chores. He says you have to go scavenge, I think he says, which we never really say exactly what that is. You just got to go find things. You know what I mean? It's like a Fallout chore. Just go find things that you can trade later.
Go find stuff, see if stuff is useful, bring back useful stuff.
Bring back some stuff, please. 1 to 2 things, please. Joseph and Thomas have this, like I said, this kind of lame argument. And this is what I meant when I was like, they just don't have any chemistry, not just chemistry of like loving brothers, chemistry of like how to act like two brothers who annoy each other too. Mm-hmm. They almost just feel like they are, I don't know, college roommates that just met each other and are having their first fight. You know what I mean? Because this argument was a bit painful as they were driving the 4x4. But eventually Thomas is like, I don't need you. And Joseph's like, I don't need you. And he's like, well, I'm going to go pork and you go do the thing. And then I'll meet you back here so we can drive the 4x4 back together so Dad thinks we were together. So Thomas takes off, goes running up to Boner Town, and he says, meet you here before sunset. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We all know that's going to happen because it's a movie. Right. Thomas was apparently helping this neighbor, the Rose family, or at least the Rose Farm, they refer to it as, which is like the neighboring, I guess, farm close to their kind of little homestead. But he's been helping them with, I don't know, things and stuff. And he's using this as an excuse to go back and, ogle their daughter, who's Charlotte. And she's obviously into him, too. Yeah, this progresses pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Joseph is off just doing the most dangerous shit with a machine that he barely knows how to operate. and he's like, goes down in a, I don't know, like a underground bunker almost. He like ties the winch to himself. I'm like, this kid's going to get cut in half in 5 seconds.
Doing
and
Fallout
then he gets
shit.
He really is just doing Fallout shit. Then he gets swarmed by a bunch of, I don't know, locusts or something.
Yeah,
like,
Gears of War, locusts.
Yeah, this is straight up Fallout at this point. I do like that they pivoted here because I was like, oh, great. Joseph's going to get in trouble and Thomas is going to have to man up and stop being selfish and go help his brother, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they do role reversal there, which we'll get into in a second. But Thomas and Charlotte, you mentioned, play this fucking annoying game and it feels like they're in a movie. I don't know. Yeah. That scene sucked too.
It feels like they're in a Emma Watson rom-com, you know, like Fault in Our Stars type of bullshit. Like, we're going to sit in a tree and play a game where we tell each other stories. Like, yeah, it feels off. If it weren't for the fact that they're telling stories about how the world ended, it would have just been like eye-rollingly painful.
Well, and they're also both way too aware of how to be charismatic. Imagine if you grew up and you only ever met 4 other kids, you know what I mean, in your whole life, and you lived in a house isolated with your dad and your brother. And you did not have electricity. You didn't have any type of media beside from, books and maybe a record or something. Like, they do not have any. They shouldn't talk like that. They should be incredibly awkward, not like charming and good looking. And it's, I don't know. Everyone's teeth would be bad. Like, why are everybody's teeth so nice? Those aren't post-apocalyptic teeth.
No,
those aren't even Irish teeth.
Those aren't even regular Irish teeth. But
no.
Yeah, they shouldn't have that much riz about them, to use the parlance of the children. And then Thomas over here is Rizmaster 3000. Yeah. That's a term that I learned from my nephew this week. Great.
The Rizmaster 3000.
What a shitty robot. But the other thing that stuck out to me is they all still maintain Christian tradition as well. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I feel like, would you really go about reminding everybody, like, God exists and shit like that? Like, I don't know.
Praying, putting cross. I mean, I guess putting the crosses on graves, which comes up later, but like, are you really going to be praying, saying grace and shit like that? Hell no.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt,
God's like, dead, guys.
that's the one thing you stick with in your end of the world scenario. Like,
I don't think so. There's goddamn monsters under the house.
Right.
Anyway, so of course they go back and the 4x4 won't start. So you're like, John's stranded. And then Thomas is rushing back from Pussy Farm and Pussy Farm,
Burger Town.
Yeah, I'm just coming up saying dumb shit now. And then you're like, okay, here's what's going to happen. He's stranded. It's going to be dark. He's going to have to go save his brother, whatever. JK, guys, it actually starts right up and John is okay. But then Thomas slips, cranks his dome, and falls into a fucking hole in the forest like a dumbass.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I liked that little twisty twist because everything up to this point was very predictable. And you could argue that there are quite a few predictable things about this movie, but I did like that little twist because you really thought you were going to be spoon fed something. And then it, although it didn't come dramatically change the direction, you kind of knew what was going to happen a little bit. I do like that they did that. And they were like, oh no, John's kind of the resourceful one and Thomas is the one that needs rescued.
Yeah. It was an effective scene of like cutting between the two boys of like Joseph trying to get the car started, playing with the relays, and then, Thomas running through the woods and then like Joseph arrives and goes, oh, well, he's not here. So I guess he went on without me because technically at that point, Joseph was late.
Yeah.
So he assumed that Thomas had run back to the house anyway, because at that point Joseph was late anyway. So
here's another. On that same vein, another thing that happens immediately after that I thought was not predictable. Because here's how this, you've seen 100 movies like this, right? He comes back, and Daddy Cage says, "Where's Thomas?" And Joseph goes, "I thought he was here already." And they're like, and then he gets real mad at the kids. Hey, what's wrong with it? How could you leave your brother? And you guys are stupid, blah, 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 blah. Nope. Nick Cage just goes, no, this is not your fault. This is my fault.
Yeah.
You go in the house, lock it up. I'm going to go get your brother. And that was just like, he's very calm and pragmatic about it, which was, again, just kind of bucked what I expected from how that scene was going to play out.
Yeah. Yeah. It bucks what you expect, but it still is in line with everything Cage has done in the film so far. I will say when he says it's not your fault, it's mine, it definitely has that I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed type of sting to it.
I could see that. Yeah. Like, I should have not trusted you.
Exactly. Yeah. Of like, you're still not worth trusting. You are still a little boy. So this is my fault that this is happening right now. So you lock up and I'll be right back. Yeah.
And he even says like, I'll be back in the morning, you know, with Thomas. So his ideas are wherever he is, he's going to get to him, find him, track him down, whatever. He's going to take the dog. The dog is going to hopefully, the dog has some like tracking abilities, which you come to learn. So we're going to take the dog, find him and come back. So anyway, Thomas wakes up down in this, like a cave, almost like an underground cave, like crevasse type of thing. That's like a narrow opening, but it like is pretty wide underground. It's like a sinkhole waiting to happen kind of thing. And he wakes up, he's kind of a little bit loopy, because he cranked his head on a rock. He's trying to get his bearings, and then he's got this little like a little fire starter, like a little spark thingy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell. So I was watching this portion of it on my phone, and then when I got home, I switched to the TV. Was it an electrical thing that he was using, or was it just one of those little things you go and it makes little sparks?
It seemed like it was an electrical one. I don't know. The whole scene's pretty dark anyway.
Yeah, it's very dark. It's hard to see. It was very hard on my phone.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe an electrical one that like spun the flint, but like just because also it started up every time. Whereas like if you were doing it manually, you'd have to like spark it like 3 times at least to get one spark out of it. Whereas like this was giving him like at least a continual burst of like 1 to 3 seconds of light to see around the cave. So yeah, I think it was electric.
So he was kind of using this little spark thing as like a lighter to like look around, kind of gain his bearings. But it's very, very dark, as you might imagine. And then all of a sudden, He kind of looks over in a little corner, and there's some sort of little creature, little fingies in the hole with him. He's got fingies in the hole. Rah! So there's a little bit of a jump scare there. There is this like scuffle kind of some sort with this like humanoid creature that's down there. You can't really see much of it at this point. Daddy Cage shows up just in the nick of time and fucks that one up. I think he stabs it. And then locates Thomas in some capacity. And he's like, hey, you're down, he's down in the hole. Hey, I can't slip through the crack. I assume Nicolas Cage couldn't slip down through the hole like Thomas did because of his enormous balls. But he couldn't come down. So he's like, I got to find my way around or whatever. He and the dog, he gets down there. Eventually they start to fortify this little, hole they're in. Like they're going to kind of stay in here for the night. Meanwhile, we're back at the house and Joseph has appeared to fallen asleep in a chair, like in the living room. And there's a pretty cool scene, although it's a little bit goofy, to be honest with you. I'll set it up. He's sitting 15 feet from the door, I want to say.
Yeah.
And there is like kind of a little sliding, peephole. It's like the thing that you would slide open and say, what's the password?
Right,
kind of thing. But somehow the person on the outside, whatever this creature is able to slide this door open, and you're not really sure why. But it's big enough where you can kind of stick an arm through. So all of a sudden you see these creepy little like clawy looking fingers coming through the hole. And you see Joseph sitting in the chair, falling asleep. But again, 15 feet away. The hand starts reaching through. Can't reach. Not even close. He's way too far away. But then the arms is like stretching.
Yeah.
And then the fingers, which are these kind of clawy, long, hooked fingers, start stretching too. And they stretch like comically far, like Looney Tunes long.
Yeah.
To the point where it's almost touching his face.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like, cool, like stretchy monster, sick,
Yeah.
But the monsters never do stretchy stuff again.
They do a little bit of stretching.
They do some wild physics stuff.
Yeah.
But they never specifically display their Stretch Armstrong powers anymore.
No. I don't want to say the monsters in this are bad, but
I like them, but they're confusing.
They are very confusing because it feels like the filmmakers said, how silly can we make these things?
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of silly cartoon ass bullshit that is like on par with the Critters. I was thinking about the Critters.
They literally do a Critters thing.
They do.
So I wrote it down. Later on, we're going to spoiler alert here, guys. They, instead of doing the whole Critters ball where they all go into a ball, they do that, but it's a ring.
They do
like a hula hoop.
They do a Cirque du Soleil ring to travel in packs.
It's when I saw that, I was like, by God. I went JR all of a sudden. I was like, by God. I couldn't believe it. This gets so much more bonkers than you think it's going to get. And I love that about it.
Yeah.
But now let's wait till we talk about what the creatures actually look like. Because then I have something that I want to let you might have read the same thing. I'm not sure, but I read something.
I didn't read shit.
That made it. Okay. That made it very clear. Ooh, thank you. Is this what is it? Killer Clowns? I love that. My this is completely sidetracked here, but my daughters came in and gave this to me. This is the Killer Clowns. She made me a gun like
nice.
the popcorn gun from Killer Clowns. Thank you, sweetie. Very cute. Anyway, so yeah, we'll talk about when we actually talk about what they look like, because I read something that was very telling about what the inspiration of the monster is.
Okay.
Not entirely telling, but does give us a little bit of an insight.
Okay.
So yeah, the little monster fingy thing, reaching out, trying to touch him is a strange kind of off-putting thing through the, whatever, the mail slot or whatever the hell it is. It's like the little password door. But surprise, surprise, it's a trap. Joseph actually had up above him It was the, kind of trapdoor style door up to the attic where you pull the string down and there's a ladder that comes down, except for when he pulled the string, a dang old big cage fell down.
Yeah.
And not the Nicholas kind, a big old reinforced nasty cage that landed on top of the monster and trapped it.
Yeah, he hit him with the old mouse trap.
He did. He mouse-trapped the Fingy monster.
Yeah.
Which I was like, dang, didn't see that coming. I thought that was fun. Didn't expect that to happen.
I kind of was sort of expecting it because
Really?
just the way he had his seat positioned to be so perfectly out of range, because like the monster's arm comes through the door and it like unfolds itself 3 times before it gets to the fingies. And then it stretches so hard and so long to get that one fingernail to try and touch him. It's like reaching underneath your couch to just grab that one fucking thing that rolled under it, and you can't get it.
Yeah, it's like when your phone drops behind your bed and you're like trying to reach down there and you pull your shoulder out of the socket.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get there, right?
Right.
But then he just says, forget it. And he reaches in and opens the door and says, I got to go in. So he gets his little butt in there, and then you still don't see what the monster looks like, but you do, that it got trapped in this cage.
Yeah. So I was suspecting that Joseph had some sort of knowledge of like the length that they could go to. So he knew what safe distance was for himself.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right.
He knew he could sit exactly here and it would give him enough length that it couldn't get him. So then it would have to come into the house, and then he, boop, mousetrap.
Mousetrapped him. Yep. So cut back to Thomas and Nick Cage. Daddy Cage, he riled up all the Fingy monsters. He lit a flare, and they all started running. You heard them all kind of like coming, like they're tunneling underground. Everything's shaking, so he's getting them all riled up. And then at first I thought that he tried to suicide bomb him. I wasn't sure exactly what he had done, but I actually don't really know what his plan was. But eventually what does happen is he kind of gets, I guess his hand or something like stuck when some rocks collapse. But I'm not sure what he's trying. Is he trying to light like a explosive device with the flare? Like I'm not. It's a very dark scene. Again, I was watching this portion of my phone, but I wasn't exactly sure what his plan was in the beginning. It's not that important because he does just end up getting kind of, blowed up. He gets blowed up in a Looney Tunes sense.
Yeah.
He just gets exploded.
It's a pretty like funny quick cut too. But like he was trying to bury like a pipe bomb into the sinkhole that they were making. So, and then he just, I don't know if he was willing to sacrifice himself at that point. I think he was. But he just blows up the pipe bomb when he's right next to it. And then just, it is a very Looney Tunes. You see the flash go up and he gets thrown back a little bit, but it's a hard cut before like he even gets thrown all the way.
Yeah, it's like when like Bugs Bunny puts his finger in the end of Elmer Fudd's gun and then explodes in his face. That's kind of like what happened to Nick Cage in this scene. Joseph goes in the morning and finds them. He's got the 4x4 and he takes the dog and the dog leads him to him. The dog comes back and finds him, in the woods and then leads him to Thomas and the dad. And Thomas doesn't really even seem to understand exactly what happened with the explosion. He's like, we were in a thing and he got blown up. Like he doesn't really even know how to explain what happened. Because I was like, did I miss something there? But I don't think I did. I think it's just a little bit unclear exactly what happens, ultimately resulting in dad getting exploded. They get him back home. And they try to kind of fix him up, but he's unconscious. They don't really know he's breathing. He's alive, but he's obviously unconscious, and they're not really sure if he's going to recover or what's going to happen. So, meanwhile, Thomas kind of got this case of the yips, right? And Joseph has to kill the one that he has in the cage because Thomas is like, no, I can do it. I'm just as tough as you are. Thomas is kind of feeling a little bit inadequate, I guess. And he's like, let me kill this one. And Joseph, he's like, don't let him out. And Thomas is a dumbass. He lets him out. But like I said, he gets a little case of the yips. And then Joseph has to kind of pop in and kill it. And Joseph was pissed because he was going to study it, right? He wanted to learn from it.
And this Thomas adds to this by saying, like, he killed a bunch with his dad when he had not killed any of them. Like he was kind of like I killed so many of them. Yeah. And you're like, no, you didn't, dude. And Joseph can tell he's full of shit. Right. So he's like, I killed so many and I'll kill this one too. And he's, like you said, he's trying to like grasp at some sort of manliness because, essentially his dad had to save him and his dad blew himself up trying to save him. And he did nothing except for bonk his head and then, have to get rescued. So, yeah.
Yep. So this is the first time we get a really good look at the creature, one of the creatures. It is really hard to explain. I was struggling to do this. Okay, so here's what I came up with. It's definitely some sort of mutant kind of animal human hybrid type of thing, right?
Yeah.
More animal than human.
Yeah.
But it's a humanoid-ish type of creature that walks kind of upright or on all fours. It reminds me a little bit of the man bat. It has bat-like qualities, but it also kind of is reminiscent of like a mutant. Like it has mole-like qualities too, because it digs underground.
Yeah.
And it's got these big claws that are mole-like. But it also has like a insect-like way of moving, like a cockroach kind of. And you see pictures on the wall that Joseph had like drawn and was comparing them, I think, to like cockroaches. And then of course the whole like post-apocalyptic survival thing. Cockroaches is a little bit of a stereotype, but perhaps that has something to do with it. And then they also like hunt in packs and almost remind me of like a velociraptor a little bit.
Yeah.
They have the like weird long necks.
Yeah, they have like elements and of like, everything, of like being
bird-like a little bit.
Yeah, bird-like, mammalian, reptilian, and insect-like, and like it's all over the place. They have, like you said, they had like this long neck, and the head presents itself in two ways. So the first time you see the head, I don't know if you could see this because you were on your phone. But it's when Thomas falls down into the hole and he lights up and he sees the hand. But if you look a little bit past the hand, you see like this grinning face.
Yeah, I could see it. But again, it was on my phone, so it wasn't super clear.
Yeah. So it's a weird thing. And I wonder if this is something that you read or like found the lore on. Is
I did. Yeah.
The head. They present their head in two different ways, almost like, the way like predators or other animals like, will change their shape. But sometimes the head is straight up and down and it looks like a tiki mask with like a human monster face to it. But the real head is like a long salamander head with big giant horse teeth in it. And it clacks when it snaps.
Yeah. So this is what Benjamin, what's his name? The director.
Benjamin Brewer. Is this a Jabberwocky? Is this a Jabberwocky, Brian?
No, even weirder.
Okay.
He said that the creature, and I'll show you the pictures, the creature is actually inspired by Goofy from Disney. Like Disney's Goofy.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And he said it's specifically inspired by a very specific scene in a Goofy movie where the kid is having like a daydream about Goofy and he like opens his mouth in a weird way and it really like freaked him out when he was a kid. And so it's inspired by Goofy. And I actually found an article where they interviewed him and he goes into a surprising amount of detail about what the early inspirations were for it. And the early inspirations, they actually have a couple of very early drawings, like just little sketches of what he wanted it to look like. And it's very Goofy-ish. it eventually moved into this different, amalgamation of different creatures, and a little bit more animalistic, but it was inspired by Goofy, weirdly enough. So the grinning big square teeth with like gaps in between them kind of thing was really inspired by this very specific scene from a Goofy movie, I guess.
Okay, I mean, I see that, but like I think maybe even a better example, which it would be like a it's a pre-Goofy thing, but it's still like in the Disney verse, is like if you go back to the old like Disney from the 1920s and stuff, and like look at the way they drew fucking horses and cows.
Yeah.
The way they're all gangly, but then look at their faces. Their faces are like almost exactly that, and then they have the square teeth and everything. I like while you're explaining the Goofy thing, I was like, oh yeah, that's also like, I don't know, I just had a vision of like when they had the horses and cows like eat fucking corn, and it's the typewriter.
Yeah.
It's the typewriter sound effect. I was like, that's exactly what these monsters are. They're ripping off the 1920s horse and cow from
like the old Mickey and Friends, episodes. Yeah, it 100%. It looks like an old cartoon. And whenever you look at the old drawings from this article, it looks like an old animal from like with just the black dot eyes too. You know what I mean? It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Very unique, very curious creature design, which I don't. So here's the other thing that we should mention as well is we get this later. We learn kind of how they attack, and then potentially we get a very vague idea of some of their biological functions, I guess. But they do this weird like snapping thing where their head, like almost like you said, like their jaw almost kind of detaches and like their head like flaps backwards and their teeth smack off each other. And it's like this snapping kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know if it's right before they attack, but later on somebody gets attacked by them, and we'll get into more detail, but later on that happens to somebody, and then some other body part, some other part of their biology shoots out, and I couldn't tell, because then you find the victim later and I'm like, did it eat them? Did it fuck them? I really don't know. I'm not sure what happened.
It is baffling as to what that scene was. I'm just like, I don't know. Something happened to them.
I went back and watched it again. So I actually watched that part in the car, but then I went back and rewound further back to watch that on my, big screen as well. And I was just like, I still don't know what I'm looking at. I actually still have no idea what I'm looking at. But in any case, Joseph goes on. Joseph does have to kill this creature because Thomas is being a bitch about it. Joseph does end up still like cutting it up for some reason. Like he's trying to understand how it works or whatever. Thomas talks Joseph into going and taking their dad to the Rose Farm, and basically saying like, we need help, we need to stay here, we need medicine, our dad's gonna die, whatever. And you go to the Rose Farm and you meet, in a little bit more in depth, you meet Charlotte's parents, and they're basically like, nah, fuck off, basically. Like pretty flat out, nah, fuck you, we're not taking anybody else in. But then, just kidding, Thomas can stay. Right. Because we want him to bang out our daughter. That's what I thought. But then they're sending a little bit of mixed signals here. But just kidding. Thomas can stay. But Joseph and your dying father can go eat shit, which is a pretty rough thing to do. Because it looks like they're pretty fucking well off. Let's be honest. Like they have a fucking compound up here and a whole farm and the whole thing. And I was like, oh, it's because they want him to knock up their daughter. This is going to become this kind of weird, creepy thing where they like are trying to force him to be with the daughter and whatever. It didn't really come to that. But anyway, the boys have this wimpy little fight. And it's like, hey, it's your fault. Dad's going to die or whatever. Kind of Joseph telling Thomas he's a selfish dick. And then Thomas tries to strangle Joseph, so it gets a little serious for a second. And then he just decides he needs pussy more than his father and his brother, and then just literally goes inside. They're like, "That's a pretty cool, not cool decision, bud." But yeah, that's Thomas for you. He's lousy with it, lousy with the fever.
I don't know that I like find Thomas redeemable in this movie.
No, he's a bastard.
Yeah.
Listen, if any teenager, right? I certainly remember being a 15-year-old boy or however it was going to be. I've never been so horny that I'd let my family die.
That you strangled your brother.
I never got so horny I strangled my brother. No, it reminds me of that scene from I Think You Should Leave, where he's like the honk if you're horny sketch. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? Why do you have it? I'm so horny." He's like, "Oh, my stomach hurts." Like it reminds me of. Like, Thomas is so horny, he's literally gonna let his family die.
Yeah. He can't think of anything else for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's just because, I mean, we've seen Joseph, and he's out in the world, and he finds like a big titty lady picture, and he's like, "Hell yeah, dude, big titty lady picture. All right, back to science." Yeah. So like he has control over himself, and they're the same age, but Thomas is just like, "Oh, I gotta get in it."
Oh, my stomach hurts so bad. Yeah. So Charlotte and Thomas waste no time. They start making out, but then the dad walks in, and first of all, the dad has got this like blue blood British accent, which I think is really funny. I don't know why. He is a British actor. I looked it up. He is a British actor, so whatever, but it just seems very out of place. Anyway, and he's like, "Charlotte, come with me." Like, he's pissed off that I don't know, that they're making out. It's like, really, did you not think that was going to happen? Didn't you see the look? Like, that's why you let him in, right? Anyway, Joseph takes Daddy Cage back home, just drags his ass in the house, and he sees that the creatures have been like in and around the house. Something's happened. He's seeing footprints, like the creatures are running amok. And he sees there's a big ass hole under the rug. Like, he steps in the rug and there's a big ass hole in the floor. Like, they've been tunneling up under the house, which is obviously bad news. Meanwhile, Thomas kind of finally, I don't know if he rubbed one out or what, but he like finally came to his senses and was like, wait. This was pretty uncool of me. And he tries to find some medicine to take back for his dad. And because they say, you know, they mention that they have medicine there. And he tells Charlotte, like, "I got to get to moving. You know, I got to get to stepping. So sorry." Yeah. And she gives him just a random bottle full of pills. And I guess it's just like all-purpose medicine. Yeah. like just it's green herbs, you know, from Resident Evil or something.
It's video game logic of like, here's pills. Yeah. Like, okay, my dad like
medicine
will
is
now.
A specific thing. Yeah. Like, he needs antibiotics probably to ward off infection, I would imagine. Yeah. If that's what's wrong with him, I guess.
Yeah, that's part
of
it.
What if he just gave that to him and it was just like, you know, ADD medication or something? Right, yeah. Like, this is not, it's just medicine is a singular thing in this world.
Fucking Percocets, buddy.
Yeah, he just he's like, "Dad, take 3 of these," and he's just, "Oh fuck," his dad, his heart stops.
Oh fuck.
Oh, wrong medicine. It says medicine.
God damn it, Joseph! Stop being mad at me. I brought medicine.
Yeah, but apparently this is the right medicine. She knows. I don't know. So this farmhand overhears them, and as Thomas is like running down, because he's like, "I got to get this back to my dad," and Charlotte is like, "All right, I understand. Here's medicine." The farmhand's like, "You ain't going nowhere, brother." Has him at gunpoint, says, "You stole," and he's like, "No. Charlotte gave him to me," and he doesn't believe him. And now all of a sudden there's just like a small army of evil farmhands just lurking about, and they just take Thomas out to the barn, and they hold him down. They're going to blast his foot off, I guess, as punishment, which is like, maybe have a conversation before you blast someone's foot off. But nope, that's what they're going to do. Seems like a pretty big left turn.
Yeah.
Because just before they were like, "Sorry, we're going to, we'll take you in. You can live here. Like, how do you explain that to your boss? Like, hey, where's that kid we said could live here that are my daughter's in love with? Oh, we're pretty sure he stole something. We blasted his foot off.
I can only assume this is partially just the jealousy on the part of the farmhands, because now all of them know they're not going to get any of the farmer's daughter. And they're like, we were waiting for that, and you showed up and took it from us.
Hey, ticker germs. But I wonder if they would just like at least have a setup scene of them getting like drunk and talking about how they don't like Thomas. Yeah. But instead it's just like, you stealing something, boy? All right, come out to the foot blasting shed. This is the next step. This is farmhand justice we're about to fucking instill on you. But just as he's about to blast his foot off, the farmhand with the shotgun gets sucked down into the dirt because they're getting attacked now by the creatures that we know, but they would not have known at this point, have been tunneling up under the floors. So all of a sudden the farmhouse is just overrun. It's just lousy with these fucking creatures. And, a candle gets knocked over. All of a sudden, everything's up in flames. So shit's getting pretty real pretty quick. Now, this is where we see the scene that I had mentioned earlier. The parents, the asshole parents of Charlotte got pretty quick here. And this is, at first, I thought, presumably, this is how they feed, I thought, right? But then later, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, maybe this was a reproduction thing. I'm not really sure. But here's what it does. The creature is doing its old little snappy business. And then it jumps on top of her. And then as it's doing its little snappy business, its face like splits open and a big, almost umbrella looking thing comes out. And I thought it was like a balloon, like a stomach that it pukes up. And then it was like digestive fluid. Then it absorbs the person through its, external stomach or something like that. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen, right?
Yeah, like a mollusk.
Yeah. And I was like, that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, like a damn old clam or some weird ass shit, right? But then Charlotte the whole time is hearing all this happening. Her parents getting munched or whatever. And then she comes out and she follows this trail of blood of like the creature had dragged someone into a room. She walks in, and Steve, I'm gonna, not to put you on the spot, but can you describe what you were seeing here? Because I want to get I honestly have a struggle to describe it. It's very dark.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Imagine a big old fat dog. and that fat dog is sleeping on the bathroom floor.
Yeah, it's just sprawled out.
Yeah, just sprawled out on the bathroom floor, getting cool on the cool tile of the bathroom. And now, imagine
I like this jazzy character you have describing it, by the way. Remember that little fat old dog?
Yeah, like a fat old dog. And now imagine that fat old dog has a vagina right in the middle of its chest.
I feel better already. Yeah.
And coming out of that vagina is like a big old giant bean of a clit. Like, way big bean.
Like half the size of the entire creature, maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's some sort of membrane. That's why it's.
I thought it was like an egg. So I like the description of the big old dog laying on the floor because it looks like it's spent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like it's now almost like defenseless, because we should say she walks in and is like, good golly, Miss Molly, what's happening in here? And it flops its head up at her.
Right.
Like just its neck, but seems to be immobilized.
Yeah, it acknowledges her. I said fat old dog, but it's also just like a snake that just ate.
Yeah.
That is like, it's brimming, and it's like, it doesn't really care about anything else going on around it. But also like, so like, is it eating in this instance, or is it like you were saying, is it doing some sort of pregnancy thing?
Yeah, because I thought it was like giving birth to a big egg at first. Mm-hmm. But then I went, because that was what was in my notes, is it's like laying there and it's giving birth to like a big, like it's laying there on its back, spread eagle, and it's giving birth to a big egg. That's what I thought at first.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, where's the mom at 8? Did it need to somehow like biologically have like a, because also it was a woman and now it seems to be giving birth to something. I don't know. This is why I really don't know how to better describe it. It's bizarre. It's extremely unclear what's happening. I'd love to get anybody else to weigh on what the fuck we're looking at here.
Yeah. It's one of those things that we need to observe it for at least 10 more minutes. It's like, just like, are you digesting or are you, is it coming in or going out? You got to tell which way is that going, bud?
Well, okay, listen, let's sleuth this out. What do we know? It dragged something in there and has done something to it that is resulting in that current state.
Right.
Because you saw the bloody drag marks the whole way down the hall and then into this room. So this creature took, presumably,
the mom,
a dead human body or an injured human body. You got to assume the mom, because that was the last thing you saw before it cut and it did its whole like weird umbrella bladder thing that popped out or whatever. And then it was like, very next thing you see, you're like, what happened after that? So you assume the mother had something to do with it, was getting drawn into this other room. So either the mother got eaten and was being digested, or somehow the mother was used for some other type of biological function, reproduction or otherwise. I sure as hell don't know. If anybody else out there has any insights into this, I am curious.
I wonder if the answers actually lie in the Goofy movie and we have to go watch that.
Yeah. It turns out if you look really closely, it's actually like on a skateboard and it's like tying on a pair of skate shoes. Wasn't that a big thing? Like in that movie, they were all like into skateboarding. I just remember
it was the 90s.
Two little kids were into skateboarding.
Yeah, it was the 90s film. Everything was skateboarding or rollerblading, and fucking Pauly Shore was there and the Easy Cheese in the Can was there. It was all there. Yeah.
I forgot about the friend voiced by Pauly Shore. Anyway, okay. So now that we're through that confusing element here, then we go back to the barn and all the bad guys, all the thingies. I just start calling them thingies after a while. All the thingies are just going batshit. And this is where we first see them doing the whole critter hula hoop into the center of, and I almost shat myself. I was like, I rewound it. I was like, did I just see what I thought I saw?
Same. I was like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Because at first I was like, is that just like a water wheel that came off something and they rode a water wheel into the, no, it's just a wheel of them and they're getting dropped off at the bus stop.
Yeah. They are all rolling it down and they do it so casually. It's not like a finishing move. This is like the way they get around.
Yeah.
Above the ground.
This is the way they have somehow, as a species, decided, like, when we're underground, boys, we tunnel. And we tunnel as a pack, but, like, we don't touch. But when we're above ground, everybody mount up. It's wheel time.
Thingies, mount up. No, it does feel like it's a orangutan, like simian type of thing that they're doing. Like you can imagine in a funny YouTube video, just two monkeys kind of grabbing onto each other, rolling around in a silly way. You know what I mean? But they're doing it like that's not what's happening here. There's like 30 of them in a big ass wheel that's like 15 feet tall.
This is our legitimate locomotion. It's not just monkeys having a goof. It is this is our A to B. Like, we're gonna go. We gotta go to the corner store for smokes. Let's get all 30 of us together and roll our asses down there. Everybody in the wheel. We gotta go get smokes. We're gonna stop by the sheep pen and then on our way back to the farm.
Yeah, wild stuff. Oh, really, really wild. Everything's on fire at this point. Charlotte saves Thomas from getting munched. Charlotte. She doesn't seem too broken up about the whole thing, to be honest with you, which is a little strange. But I guess if you grew up in this environment, people getting killed, it's not not that foreign, I guess. But anyway,
I feel like there's again, just to her, like, no affect to like everybody else dying. I feel like there probably is maybe like a sub story about the farmhands like being gross with her that they might have cut, because that's the only reason why, like, they do not give a fuck that those guys are all dead.
And they are all so evil in their mannerisms. Yeah. And we did not learn that at all, except for maybe one little quick snippet of them making a mean face. Right. So I would not be surprised if that was the case. Tom and Char go back over to the old Cage residence. And you know, he's like, hey, look, I got some medicine. Remember all the stuff I went through to get medicine? Just kidding. Daddy Cage is fine. Pops up, ready to rock and roll. And the boys tell him that, you know, the thingies have all tunneled up through the floors, and he's still laying down at this point. But he's like, so what should we do? And he goes, fight. So you get at least one coolish Nick Cage line. Right. But honestly, you mentioned earlier, not a lot of Nick Cage being Nick Cage in this, aside from, like you said, the "Are we not men?" thing earlier, and then this line. You don't get a lot of Nick Cage in this. It feels like they had him for a day, and most of the time he's on screen, he's just limp and being dragged around or carried around,
which I would,
which is really funny to have Nick Cage and go, okay, you play corpse number one. You know what I mean? But
I wonder how much of that actually is him and just not just like a mask they slapped on another guy. But
totally. Yeah. You think Nick Cage is riding around the back of the 4x4 all day?
Yeah,
no, he was in fucking, he was doing lines in Vegas while they were shooting that or whatever.
He's putting his time in on Longlegs at the same time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I wonder where that was shot. I don't know. I haven't looked it up yet, but
I mean, it occurs in the Pacific Northwest, but I don't know where it was
shot. So Joseph takes the lead on defending the house, and now it's straight up Home Alone time. He gets the fucking gasoline out, the sack of wrenches, the fucking micro machines. He's got everything ready to rock now. They come up through the floor. And I wrote, "This is it. Don't get scared now," because it feels so Home Alone-y with him setting all the traps and shit. Yep. They do like a montage of him setting the traps, and you see a bunch in these last couple scenes of that weird chomping motion that I talked about. It's such a weird decision. And it is so fast. It almost is like glitchy type of thing. Yeah. And you can't tell if the creatures are doing it for intimidation purposes or if they're like, at first I thought they were like horking up their little stomach thing. But then after a while, I think it's how they talk to each other. Yeah. It's, how like so the more this movie goes on, and there's one scene that is explicit, which we're about to get to, the more I realize this movie was really, when I say velociraptors, this is very heavily influenced by Jurassic Park. And I wonder if the little, like, how do I even say it? Like the little throat vibrating growling thing
the vocalizations
the velociraptors do. Yeah. And that's how they talk to each other in the Jurassic Park franchise. I wonder if this is his version of that.
I think it is, because it also feels like it might be almost echolocation as well, because like, okay, so they're a subterranean creature, there's not a lot of light, so you have to use other senses to communicate and find your way around. And so like if they're clacking their teeth, maybe they're using some sort of echolocation that way, because
could be,
because if they're eating by spewing out their stomach, then their teeth aren't for eating. Their teeth are for either self-defense and communication. So it's a weird fucking creature.
Well, and also if they're eating by spitting their stomach out, the worst place to do that would be underground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it'd be full of dirt.
Yeah. Unless they just eat rocks, who fucking knows?
They eat bugs.
Yeah, it's obviously
it's like a fishing trawler where they throw out the net and they just scoop up a whole bunch of dirt that's all full of bugs, and they eat the bugs and then they shit out the dirt.
Maybe it's their like filter feeders, like a big blue whale, and they just put their stomach out there and just eat grub worms or some shit.
And that's why they came to the surface, because we kept poisoning the fucking soil. And they're like, this ain't no good. This is gross. Hey, you guys up there, quit it. You're making our fucking dirt nasty. We're trying to eat our dirt down here, and you're fucking it up for us.
I like to believe that this was the third Chud movie. Or the fourth Chud movie, whatever. Is there a third Chud movie? Because I know there's obviously there's Chud, and then there's Bud the Chud, Chud 2, Bud the Chud. I don't know if there is a Chud 3. If so, I haven't seen it.
There's a Chud 3. It came out. No, there's not a Chud 3. I was gonna say if there's a Chud 3, it came out like it was one of those films that like came out 10 years after the original, and nobody paid attention to it.
Well, and Bud the Chud has literally nothing to do with Chud.
Right.
Like the whole premise, it has literally nothing to do with it. I like to believe this is the true Chud too. Chuds, go to the country. It's more of a rural Chud setting. So just when you think Nick Cage is not going to kick any asses, you're wrong. He has a baseball bat. And he kind of fucks up the whole plan, to be honest with you. But he comes out, starts stumbling around because he's kind of out of it. He's got a shotgun. He blasts a couple of them, wastes a bunch of ammo. And then he kind of waits behind. And he's like I said, he's fucking up the plan. We don't know exactly what the plan is, but we know Joseph has a plan. And when he's like, hey, they're getting in the house. Joseph's like, we want them to come in the house. That's the plan. Okay, cool. Everyone's going to follow Joseph. But then when Daddy Cage wakes up all loosey-goosey, he is just throwing everyone for a loop. Ends up kind of getting them into a predicament with a whole bunch of the Chuds coming down a hallway, and does this like last stand type of thing where he is going to basically distract them. So the rest of them can get away, I guess.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a martyr in that case. Seemed kind of unnecessary, but all right. So here's what the plan is. Tom, Joe, and because here's the thing. He's supposed to be like holding them back, like holding the now I can only think of calling them Chuds, holding them back. Meanwhile, they're all waiting for him. So he's like holding up the show, and then eventually they have to make a decision to just like get rid of him.
Yeah.
Just not get rid of him, but just like forget it. We got to go without him. It's too late. And I understand why they did that. Is it had to be it's the whole thing about a parent-child relationship, and he's giving up everything for the kids, but also it's more about the kids kind of giving up their reliance on their parents and going off and doing things on their own. Like that's really the ultimate story here.
I think there's a better way that they could have done this scene, because like you said, it feels like he's actually in the way of the plan rather than assisting it. And it should have been something where like they have like almost like this Rube Goldberg setup going of like they have a wick burning, and then the wick is going to burn, and then it's going to light a bunch of fuel on fire, and then all the kids are hiding in a fucking refrigerator, and then
like a chest freezer.
And then that's going to burn all the Chuds in the house. It should have been, I mean, as cliche as it is, it should have been like the wick goes out, so Nick Cage has to light it another way.
With this fucking cigar. What I mean?
Right.
Like, what? Yeah. Why? Yeah. But that doesn't happen. Logistically, the way they shot it, whatever, obviously, I feel like they had to pull a plan B or something, because it's a little, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I just chalked up to Nick Cage had poo brains from getting exploded earlier. Right, yeah. So he just is like, oh, what's going on? So yeah, they get in to the chest freezer, Thomas, Joseph, and Charlotte, and they have like a handle, on the inside, they can hold it down. And I thought this was really cool the way they shot this, because they shoot it from the perspective of the three kids on the inside of the chest freezer. And so it's just like almost, shot in a first person type of thing where it's like explosion. They're trying to hold the lid down, but it's still popping up, and there's fire, and they're getting rattled around and tumbling around, and you almost imagine that they were up on the second floor. They get the house fucking explodes. They get like tumbled down through the rubble and all this shit and fire and everything.
Yeah.
And it works. They are they get out on the other side, and the house is just blown to fucking smithereens. There's almost none of it left. It's on fire, and you think that's it. And you're like, oh, that was kind of cool, kind of a cool climactic ending there. Nope. The wildest scene in the movie is still about to happen. Guys, prepare yourself for an almost exact reshoot of the T-Rex Jeep chase from Jurassic Park. Except they're in the 4x4. The boys are in the front. Charlotte's in the back. Just so imagine Charlotte is Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
She's in the back, open back, and instead of a T-Rex coming at him, it is a flaming wheel of chud. Not joking. Not joking a little bit.
It's so I didn't know if it was going to be the wheel or not. So when they're leaving the house and the house is all exploded and like they're getting in the side by side and they drive off, in the background you see the thingies all like gathering and
some of them are on fire and they're kind of panicking a little bit, but they're all kind of
they're all gathering, and it looks like to me for a second it looked like they were going to do like Transformers Devastator, where they all like link up and become one giant thingy. It looked like that for a second.
Or maybe they're just gonna all get on each other's shoulders like the Goombas in Mario Odyssey. Where you can stack them up super high.
One or the other. That's what it looked like. But nope, it's back to the wheel, and now the wheel's on fire. So it's basically a Ghost Rider situation.
It's a real Ghost Rider situation, except for it's 30 thingies rolling at them, screaming. They're trying to drive away in this little 4x4. They're getting gained on. Charlotte's in the back with the shotgun, and she's like, "We only got one more round," or whatever. And she just blasts the flaming wheel. It kind of helps, but then also I think they might have just like hit a tree or something, because then they all collapse. Yeah, and the wheel just kind of falls apart, and they get away.
Yeah, no, like you said, it's the shot for shot of Jurassic Park, because in Jurassic Park, it's the branch that hits the T-Rex that slows it down enough for them to get away. And it's the same thing here.
Yeah, you're right.
The branch knocks the wheel out of, whatever, like stability. And they all collapse into a pile.
It is the strangest. Yeah, it like knocked the gyroscope of it's not, there's only one wheel, so it couldn't be a guy. But still, it's how silly of a scene was that. I couldn't believe they did it. I loved it. I was so excited that they did it. But if you would have told me 20 minutes into this movie that there was going to be a flaming wheel of creatures rolling after someone in an exact reshoot of the Jurassic Park Jeep scene, I would have said you are on crack. Yeah. Like your brain's broke.
Yeah.
But that is 100% what they did. And we are not exaggerating it even a little bit. If anything, we are underselling this.
The only thing they don't do in this scene is have Charlotte say, "Must go faster, must go faster."
I want to watch it again. I bet she does say it. The only thing they don't do is get somebody eaten off a toilet. Yeah. That's the only thing they don't do.
That was a previous scene,
which is a mistake. Yeah. So then they like pause and they like, we got away. And then they like look up and they're like, look, and they look up at the stars. Did this make any sense to you?
Yeah, I think it's just saying like, I think they're trying to imply that these kids have never seen the stars before.
Yeah, because they haven't been outside during the night because of things. I guess that's probably right. Anyway,
you should still be able to see that shit from a window, though, especially now that civilization is dead and there is no light pollution at all anymore.
You've never even glanced out a window at night? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
kids.
So then they do this thing where they like break this connection with the tree as they're driving away in their 4x4. Like, so they bury their families and they cry and whatever. And then they quickly start just joking around about how everyone's dead. And Joe's like, that bitch is cool. Like, I don't know. Again, these children have no chemistry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So they break their connection with this tree. There's like all these like little things of like fabric hanging from this tree. And there's a little story earlier that's like a place that was like kind of special to Charlotte. But again, it felt like something got cut out of it because like part of it gets connected to the 4x4. And as they're driving away, it like breaks the connection. I mean, I think even then we can figure out what it's meant to symbolize. But at the same time, it does feel like something got lost there to me. I don't know if there's something that I missed.
Nah, it didn't it didn't hit me. I was still more thinking of, at this point, I'm thinking about how like all these kids are Christian, except there's only 3 graves because fuck all those farmhands.
Yeah.
So that's what I was focused on, actually. Like the tree streamer thing, I was just like, yeah, whatever. They're just taking a piece of their home with them or wherever they're off to next.
Yeah, I guess so. But that's it. Then they just drive off. They call the dog and they drive off in their cool little 4x4. And the whole time I'm going, where are you getting gas for that fucking thing? Mm-hmm. Like, gas would have been gone a long time ago, unless he retrofitted the engine to run on some other type of fuel. But like, where are you getting fuel for that fucking thing, guys? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, that's it. That's the movie. That is Arcadia from 20 and 24. Steve, on a I hate to do this.
Yeah.
I know you're not a big rating fan, but I'm a little torn about how I feel about this movie because there was a lot of things I really like. And I'm a sucker for kookiness. So the kookiness, I want to give it a real high score.
Yeah.
But I feel like I just talked about how bad it was most of the time. So what are you going to give this on a scale 1 to 10?
I feel like this is just like a straight down the middle 5 for me because everything that isn't kooky honestly feels just like real standard. Even just watching the movie, I'm like, oh, this feels like 28 weeks later with like the setting. And I've heard things that this is like the A Quiet Place films. I was like,
it reminded me more of the, like, what's it called? They Come at Night or whatever. What was that movie called? Did you watch it? It was from, I want to say it was like maybe 2019, 2018. It's fine. Ultimately, the whole message is like, people are the real monsters.
Yeah.
Like that's, and it's fine. It's actually not a bad movie. It does a lot of tension building in a good way. Yeah. It reminds me of that, but then there is actually fucking wild ass monsters. And they fucking do a spinny wheel. They're on fire, spinny wheel fire.
It's just one of those things where this movie really tests its limits with like how silly it's going to be. Because all that other stuff is so bog standard. And then they're like, our monsters are the craziest, silliest things because they are literally based off Goofy, as I've come to learn. And that makes total sense now why they're doing all this goofy ass Disney old animation stuff. Because like, I'm sure you can find, a bunch of like those silly characters just like doing a wheel. In like one of those old animations, they make a paddle wheel to push a boat or some dumb shit like that. I'm sure you can find that in those old animations. So it's like, and they're doing the teeth clapping, which like reminds me of when they eat the corn, like, typewriters and shit like that. It's like, there's all these things. Yeah. And just like, it does look like a big fat dog, which you can see in those animations. So like, it's a crazy thing to put into your film, and it's gonna pop a lot of people because it's gonna go, oh wow, I never would have expected that.
Well, and I'm a monster movie guy. I love a creature feature, and I'll sit through a lot of shit to see a at least not even a good monster, as long as it's just a monster I've never seen before. You know what I mean? And this is a monster that I've never seen before. Never saw anything like this. Right. Yeah. So
it doesn't particularly make sense because it's such an amalgam of, like we already said, it's like it's reptilian, mammalian, you know, like it has like mollusk features of like spitting its own stomach out. Like it just grabs everything and says mishmash monster.
Well, here's what's going to happen. They're going to make a sequel to this.
I hope.
It's because that amount of butt is just going to be just enough to make a sequel of it. And the sequel is going to be terrible.
No.
But it's going to explain everything.
Yes.
and then I'm going to still watch it.
Yeah. I hope it is like a big budget sequel and you get to see the army fighting a bunch of these things and they're doing even more goofy ass bullshit. I hope they do the Devastator move and they all come together as a big giant thingy.
Yeah.
I want to see that. Fuck it. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. They're riding motorcycles. Yeah. That'd be sick. Yeah. With like LOD shoulder pads on.
What a rush.
What a rush. Just getting a fucking big pop. Anyway, I am going to say I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to give it a 7. I think that's aggressive because you're right. The only thing it really did different, but there was a couple times where it threw me for a loop when I really thought it was going to do something and then it pivoted on me. If the performances were a little bit better, if the actors had a little bit more chemistry together, I think the kid from It was good. I think he nailed what he was supposed to be, the kind of nerdier, you know, more intellectual, more analytical brother. I think it would be great. I just don't think I like the casting of the other of Thomas. And I think they went for the, you know, teen, you know, early 20s heartthrob people, rather than believable. And I think that hurt it. But I love it. It had a cool monsters, fucking silliness. And honestly, it probably would have been a 5 to 5.5 for me if it wasn't for the Jurassic Park fucking chase scene. It just, I almost, I about popped out of my seat for that one. I was excited.
Yeah. It's interesting that this film does ride the line of being like that, almost like a YA novel adaptation with the focus on the kids and stuff. But I feel like most younger audiences won't like this because they don't like things that are corny or silly, and that's what these monsters are. Yeah. So yeah.
I don't know. Weird movie. I liked it. I always like a weird movie. An unpredictable movie. So this reminded me of, I finally watched Smile. I hadn't, you know, it just was sitting out there and I hadn't watched it. Have you seen it yet?
No, I've avoided it. To me, it looked like way too just standard. But then I have seen the creature at the end. And I felt like I was spoiled, and then it turned into, well, I don't have a reason to watch now.
You don't have any reason to watch it, Steve. You're 100% right. The 90% of the movie, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is a shittier version of Ringu. That's what it is. It is almost shot for shot in some instances. Literally, they do that, and not Ringu, but the American adaptation, when, you know, the famous scene where the mom goes, I saw her face, and they snap cut to a jump scare of the little girl, teenage girl, whatever, with her face all twisted up.
Amber
they
Tamblyn,
literally do.
I think that was.
Yeah, they literally mimic that scene in this. Like, Smile is a straight up retelling of The Ring or Ringu, and it's not even done as well. But it's got pretty good performances. But the whole time I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is so predictable, whatever. This is not for me. And then the creature went a little wacky. It was fine. It wasn't anything too groundbreaking. But then, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched this out there, fast forward 20 seconds. the creature then swallows an entire human whole and like opens its mouth up real wide and like inhales. And I was like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And then it took it from a 2.5 to a 3.5 for me.
Yeah.
So
Man,
if you don't think
if good scenes in bad movies would have won for the showdown, that could have been a contender.
I can be swung by one or two good scenes in an otherwise pretty shitty movie. But if you don't think that a person slightly lowering the angle of their head and smiling at you, if you don't think that's scary, you're not going to like smile.
I don't think that's scary.
And so I watched it with Kate because I was going to watch something else that's a whole lot more brutal. I forget what I was going to watch. And then she was like, oh, I'll stay up and watch a movie with you. And I'm like, you're not going to like this. So I put on Smile instead because I've been meaning to watch it as well. Mm-hmm. And she, who, not obviously not as big of a horror movie buff as me, she thought the smiling thing was very creepy. So she liked it. And I was like, I don't know, not getting it. But then the little bit of wacky turn at the end bumped it up, let's say, a point for me. So anyway, guys, if you've got a movie that's fucking wacky, wet and wild on the beach that you want us to consider for our August Showdown episode, if you got a little birthday present for your boy and you want to give me a tasty little bit of beach horror that I can take Steve to the cleaners with for our August Showdown episode, why don't you shoot me a little DM over there? Let me know what it is. I got a couple in my mind, but always open to suggestions. And then, of course, if you want to, give us any suggestions for minisodes, that sort of stuff, follow us over on the social media. Go check out the Patreon. We are going to be recording that son of a bitchin' Youth Group is Forever episode for July. Will be coming your way to the Patreon soon. So great time to go over there and subscribe and get them, because this next one is, they're all fucking wacky wild. I had a list of 30 movies that I have cut down to like 15. And the first two, I think, were polar opposites. And I haven't even gotten to my two favorites, or at least the two that I'm most excited about. God. So a lot of fun stuff going on. Steve, anything else we should mention? Anything else we should talk about before we wrap this sumbitch up?
Jump on the Patreon if you want to add movies to the patron side, because we're changing things around. So Brian will have a movie, I'll have a movie, and then I'll pick a movie from the pool of patrons, or rather a picker wheel will. I'm going to have all the patrons submit a movie that they think should go on the Blood Beach. I'm going to spin the wheel and see who gets picked, and then that'll be the movie that we present for them, and then that'll all go to an audience vote. So that's how it's going to work for August.
We should, and we can iron this out next time, but we probably should have the Patreon wheel have the first pick. So if the Patreon wheel gets a movie that we were going to pick, we're shit out of luck.
Right,
we have backup.
Yeah. We always have backups.
And that's just a little bit of extra danger. Okie dokie. That'll be fun. I'm going to have to do a little bloody beach horror watching this week. So, along with Longlegs. So, all right, boys and ghouls, for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Big Wheel.
You're? All right.
I'm Big Wheel.
Bye.